Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. We fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom.
On this episode of Cigars and Sea Stories, Bennett sits down with Brehan Brady. Bríen is an Army veteran, served 8 years as an infantryman in the United States Army, with everybody from the Virginia Army National Guard to 10th Mountain to the 101st. His deployments include MFO Rotation 41 and Iraq rotations in 03, 04, and then from 05 to 06. Honorably discharged in August of 2007. He is now a rigger with the H.B DuPont Preservation Shipyard at Mystic Seaport, restoring and preserving historic vessels from the age of sail. Well, welcome to Cigars and Sea Stories, my friend.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about some of the stuff that we have coming up at Mystic Seaport, especially as it relates to the veteran community.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome that, we're talking on Cigars and Sea Stories, but we're actually talking about like real boats and things at this point, like real stuff. It's pretty awesome. I've been wanting to have you on for a while, so.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty excited to have the opportunity. We have a couple of pretty cool things coming up over the course of the next few months at the seaport, doing some outreach finally with the veteran community, especially locally. This is one of those areas, southeastern Connecticut, where if you didn't know better, you kind of get the feeling that vets are sort of few and far between, but there's actually a pretty sizable population of veterans around here, and it's to me anyway, it's pretty important to kind of start getting guys connected with each other, because that's how we're at our best, is when we're sort of together.
I would concur. So Brady and I know each other from Alpha Company 287th Infantry, 10th Mountain, and we deployed to Sinai together, and just kind of, we weren't in the same platoon or anything, but I remember drinking together a few times and, having just a good old rip-roaring time. We had a lot of overlap. So that was a company that got along really well across the board. And that's not always the case. So that was kind of a cool thing.
We definitely, I think First Sergeant McCamey wouldn't have had it any other way.
Freaking no kidding, right? He would have killed us all.
But yeah, definitely. Yeah, Fort Drum was, my wild private times.
Right.
I was E2 through E4 there. I was actually E2 twice.
Right, I remember.
Oh, Canada. But
Canada, I love it.
That Sinai deployment was something else. Of course, we were over there when 9/11 happened, so that was every time I tell my where were you on September 11th?
Oh yeah, man.
It's pretty unique.
Now, where were you? What were you doing? Were you out on site, or were you back at South Camp, or what were you doing?
We were actually back on South Camp. We'd rotated back a couple of weeks before, and we did the whole forest protection, sitting in the
guard mount.
Tin cans in the sky. And then we had done a stint on quick reaction force, and then my platoon had actually come up on our downtime where you could take a pass.
Oh no, that's horrible.
go out to Sharm el Sheikh. So. My squad leader at the time was, remember Sergeant Fink?
Yeah.
Bradley.
Sergeant Brad Fink.
Yeah. He, I guess a couple of years before had started scuba diving and had been talking to us about, the opportunities that, it's the Red Sea. It's some of the best scuba diving in the world. So myself, Joe Faris, Justin Croup, and Doc Witt, and Cuffy, all took basically a 4-day pass, and we're like, all right, we found a place that was PADI, which is, I think it's the Professional Association of Divers International, but they were doing a open water certification course. So we, thought, hey, this is a great time. So we all signed up, and
like, who gets to learn how to dive in the Red Sea? That's awesome.
I know, right? I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, we were living the dream at that point. I mean, we were diving all day long. We were going out to the bars in Sharm at night, getting wild, and in fact, September 11th was the day for our check dives. So we got up early, got our gear, got down to the boat. I think we got 2, maybe 3 dives in, and actually had that was, we were certified after that, and we went back. You remember the Camel Bar? It was like a resort.
Yeah, I love the Camel Bar. That place was the shit.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where we were staying. So we were checking our gear in, and one of the locals, the Siddiquis, comes up to us, and I'll never forget it. He goes, "Hey, you a Medici?" And our first reaction was basically like, "Piss off, dude. We're not going in your shop." Because those guys would come pull you in off the street and try to sell you stuff. And, we were ignoring them basically. And the guy goes, no, mister, plane, bomb, World Trade Center. And we were like, what are you talking about, man? Like, you've been smoking this stuff? And we went up, and we actually went into the Camel Bar, and they had that TV in the corner tuned to CNN. And I'll never forget it. We walked in, walked through the door, look at the television, and it's, the one tower with the smoke and fire burning out of it, and you see the second plane come right in, and we were like, oh my God, and I don't know, like, it's one of those things that, like, at that time, like, your brain really can't comprehend, and for me, my first reaction was, somewhere there's an air traffic controller who is in
really big trouble, right?
And we're watching this. I mean, sure, like, millions of other Americans across the country and the world were. And the bartender, like, calls us over, and we all belly up to the bar, and we're watching this go on the television. And there's and there are a lot of British expats, and there were a couple of guys.
That's like all that hung out there, pretty much.
Oh yeah.
Well, it was owned by a British expat.
Yep. Yeah. And the guy brought us our food. I think poured us around the beers. We're watching this sort of like stunned, and they had the little news ticker across the bottom, and I noticed it said the reports were coming in from DC that the Pentagon got hit.
Yeah. And
it was like one of those moments where, like, all of a sudden, like, the room shrinks. You're like, whoa, wait a minute, this is for real. This is an attack. And we finished our food, and I'm like, well, I guess we ought to get back on post. Like, things are going down. Let's get back to South Camp. And I'm not going to say we hijacked the car, but we definitely ran out in the street and stopped the first car driving by, and jumped out in front of them. There's this guy driving a black Mercedes-Benz, and before he knew what was going on, all of us had piled into the car, and we're like shoving, money at him, and we're like, South Camp, take us to South Camp. And, I'm sure he probably had heard over the radio that something else, so he decided to cooperate with us, and, drove us back to South Camp. We had him stop about a quarter mile from the gate and let us out, because we sort of figured that a black Mercedes-Benz with Egyptian plates barreling towards the front gate at South Camp might be.
And by that point, we had already been alert. We had already been activated. Like, we were on full freaking shit was going down mode. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like standing by for like.
Yeah, because I was on South Camp when it happened. We had actually relieved you guys on guard duty. Yeah. So we were pissed because our freaking shit got fucked up for the next. I think we were going, I think we were 2 days away from getting our, like our 5 days off or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, this is bullshit. But, I mean, but we were freaking out. You remember Jesse Clark?
Yeah. Clark, I remember him.
So him and he was my roommate on South Camp. And we were sitting there watching our little bullshit, like 13-inch TV, watching AFN. And we didn't see the first plane, but we saw the second plane hit. And then as soon as the Pentagon got hit, Remember, oh God, was it First Sergeant or Sergeant Major Uncongo or something like that?
Congo,
Yeah.
yeah.
Remember they had that siren down at like battalion, that like hand crank freaking air horn thing.
Yeah, like the air raid
Yeah,
siren.
the air raid horn. So he like gets out there and starts cranking that thing. And everybody's running around like a chicken with their head cut off. We're like, it's like Rocco from Boondock Saints, like, grab your shit, grab your shit. Everybody. It was so funny, man.
It was like when I remember we get through the gate, yeah, and there were like twice the number of MPs there, and they were all wide-eyed and probably slightly trigger-happy.
Yeah.
And we ran, the bunch of us ran from the gate back to Alpha Company, and First Sergeant McCamey was standing there, and he was basically like, get to your rooms, grab your shit, falling at the arms room to draw weapons and ammo, and we were like, whoa, you know. And of course, because we were on pass, we guys turned our uniforms in to get washed.
Right.
So not a one of us had our DCUs or anything. So one of my most vivid memories of that is Joe Faris. He was a 240 gunner, and standing there with a case of ammunition next to him, cradling his 240 in his arms, wearing his boots, but like swim trunks and like a Hawaiian shirt.
Right.
That's how we were gonna go to war.
That shit's funny. That shit's crazy.
But yeah, it was
yeah, and then we got to eat shit food for like the next 30 days.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, and that was
fucking T-Rats and all that shit. Oh my God, it was horrible. We were like, no, you took our food away. You can't do that. Because that was one of the things that was awesome about that deployment, is the food was freaking pretty damn good. Yeah, and then you could get the Siddiquis from the NCO club with delivered beer to your room. And beer and pizza.
Well, I remember the thing was they wouldn't just deliver beer; you had to order food.
Yes.
And there were a couple of times where we would be like, all right, well, we need an order of French fries and 48 Heinekens.
Right. That's awesome. It's some freaking. Can I have some chicken tenders and 2 cases of beer, please?
Yeah. They called that the best kept secret in the Army for a reason.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I have a couple buddies that have deployed there, and they were like, man, that deployment was awesome. I mean, besides the 9/11 shit, because that kind of sucked. But then when they, everything calmed down, what was it, about a month, you'd say?
Yeah, I think it sort of like took a month because we ended up doing EIB testing.
Right.
I think it was like October, November.
Yeah.
I think
it was like right after EIB, we were able to go back out in town and kind of back to normal.
Yeah, I think everything had sort of settled.
Yeah, man, that was oh my God, I just remember going to Wild Geese.
Oh, that's where I had my
Thursday nights, brother.
First beer when I was 21, because I turned 21
right.
While we were over there.
That's awesome.
Probably much to everybody's relief, so they didn't have to worry about me getting underage drinking.
Right, hammered. Freaking, I remember Thursday nights they did like 50, I think it was 50-cent Guinnesses, and then he would throw in a shot of Jameson for like $1 extra. Yeah, so it's like $1.50. You're like freaking, oh my God, dude, just bad, all bad.
I mean, like, and the thing too is like we were actually pretty well behaved overall as a battalion.
Yeah, remember, nobody really got in trouble. Nothing big, nothing like stupid.
Yeah.
I don't remember any like, court martials or any shit like that.
I served at Campbell with a guy who was in was it the Gimlets, the guys we relieved.
Yep.
From 25th, and like, yeah, they had dudes get like sent back to face court martial, like all kinds of stuff, getting into fights with nationals and just acting the fool.
Right. And then, did you go to Israel?
Yeah, I went on the first Eilat trip.
That was a lot of fun, man.
Me and Rob Cook walking around with our t-shirts tied around our heads. And like, oh man, there was I got a funny, reminisce about good old Rob, but we were, there was a group of us. We were down by the water, and they had like this like small amusement park with one of those rides that like you it's almost like sitting on a train car, but it's on a, it's like half a Ferris wheel, and it goes back, forth, and then it starts doing loops and spins you upside down. And there was nobody there. It was dead. And Cook decides, he's a little bit drunk, decides he wants to go on this thing, and goes over and like tells the operator, he's like, I want you to, give me a good ride on this. And he gets on it and he starts going. And the whole time Cook's on there, he's like yelling at the guy, talking smack to him. He's like, this isn't shit,
Right.
And
right.
the ride operator was like, all right, dude. And basically got it so it stopped inverted. So Rob's hanging upside down in this thing, and it's like 5 seconds of like dead calm silence, and then you start hearing Rob go, all right, man, all right, let me down, I'm gonna puke.
So you deployed, did you deploy to Afghanistan with 10th, with Alpha?
I left Drum. I went on PCS leave in December of 2002, like right before Christmas.
So you left right before I did.
Yeah, and then I got down to Campbell. I reported the 19th, I think 19th or 20th of January. I got down there, and then you go through replacement and all that other stuff. And I ended up getting assigned to Bravo Company, 3rd Battalion, 502nd Infantry in 2nd Brigade. And I got, it was like maybe around the 29th, 30th of January, I actually got to my company, and we got deployment orders for Kuwait on the 9th of February. Damn. And we ended up going wheels up to Kuwait on March 7th.
So you were there like a whole 3 months, not even, like 2.5 months, and you're on your way to freaking.
Yeah, I mean, like, it really hit the ground running there. And I mean, everything was spinning up for Iraq. I mean, you remember what it was like back then. Everybody knew we were going.
Everybody knew they were going to war.
And I was fortunate in that I ended up in a company at Campbell very similar to what Alpha Company was like. A group of guys that had been together for a long time. There was a lot of specialists, a lot of guys been in the company for 3 or 4 years.
The freaking E4 Mafia, for real.
Oh yeah, and
just so everyone knows, so Alpha Company 287, I think because you left in December of 2002, I left in April of 2003, so like literally like 3 months, like right at the beginning of April, so like 3 months later, I think literally half the company was E4. They were at least E4. I think literally like every 5-man fire team, there might have been one private in each, maybe. Everybody was an E4. Everybody was a specialist. It was crazy. I'd never seen so many damn specialists in a unit because we had all been there forever.
Yeah, I mean, before we went to the Sinai, the last group of new guys that got the Alpha Company, which was like right after NTC, was like me, Rob Cook, John Bickford, Greg Eckler. There was like, probably, probably. Oh man, I got to the company the same day he did, and it was brutal. It was.
I talked to Bickford not that long ago. So.
Yeah, he's out in Colorado, right?
Arizona.
He's out west. But he was from near Drum though. He like grew up in upstate New York.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and Bravo Company was like that. These guys, most of these guys had done a deployment to Bosnia. A bunch of them had gone over to Jordan, like right after 9/11.
Right.
So like tight knit, lots of experience. Really, and there was that same sort of cross pollination between the platoons. And for me, I think I was at a little bit of an advantage getting there, being a specialist, but also having my expert infantryman's badge. Yeah. And I went to air assault school at Drum, so I was already air assault qualified when I got there.
Right.
Because I ended up permanently becoming a team leader in May of 2003 when we were in Iraq. We had one of the squad leaders in my platoon got meningitis and got evac back. Yeah.
Holy hell.
Got evac back to the States, and then my team leader took that squad over, and then I got pushed up to team leader.
Now, where were you in Iraq?
Well, we went in. My personal claim to fame is I'm pretty sure I was the first member of 2nd Brigade to pee on Iraqi soil. Because I know, right? That's something I could tell my grandkids about. But, well, my platoon had been sort of detached to work with the Pathfinder Company as combat search and rescue, because they were kind of figuring when we went in that we might lose some aircraft, so we were a downed aircraft recovery team. And as a result of that, like, we actually went on one mission prior to the bulk of the division heading north, crossing the Burma into Iraq.
Right.
But like 3rd Infantry Division and the Marines, they crossed the Burma like 4 or 5 days before we did. And it was typical Army, where we like had the op order was out, we planned and trained and went over stand tables, knew our objectives, and had everything down to a T. And then the day in question, we got fragoed. We had total change of mission, literally on the air. Like, awesome. we were at we'd been in, I can't remember if it was at Camp New Jersey or Camp Virginia, but they had pulled us back to Camp Udari for our air assault north, and total change of mission, literally on the tarmac.
Oh my God.
I joke, I'm like, I spent my first week in Iraq having absolutely no idea where in Iraq I was. Like, I knew I was north of Saudi Arabia and south of Turkey. So
right.
That was about it.
And that's about it. That's awesome.
But we ended up going in to reinforce some 3rd Infantry Division guys holding the bridge at a town called Al Kifl, which is near Al Najaf. Mm-hmm. So we ended up doing that. We secured Al Kifl, Al Kufa, which is a funny story about Al Kufa I'll tell you about in a minute. Then we assisted in taking Al Najaf. From there, we conducted an air assault and took the city of Karbala, which was the biggest fight I've ever been in my life. My battalion was ended up being awarded the Valorous Unit Citation for it.
Right.
We basically ran into a bunch of Fedi and Saddam, the real the pellets, the guys that don't throw their hands up. And,
right. It's actual that'll actually stand their ground.
Yeah. So we had that was a pretty wild day. And then we ended up going from there. We had like a 2-day tactical pause, and then pushed into Baghdad, secured Baghdad, and then at the end of April, we air assaulted into Mosul up north, secured Mosul, and then that's where I spent pretty much the rest of that year, from April till February 04, was up north in Mosul doing the Kurdish resettlement up in Kurdistan, which was, as far as like a takeaway from having been over there, that was something that I still to this day feel good about. I mean, like, if we hadn't been there, these people would not have been able to go home.
Right.
And then, so I'll tell you real quick the Al Kufa story. So in the town of Al Kufa, there was like a soda factory, basically.
Okay.
They made Kufa Cola.
Right.
It was like the Iraqi version of Pepsi.
Right. Yeah.
Our brigade headquarters set their headquarters up in the soda factory for 3 days. And, American soldiers being what they are, they stocked up. I mean, these guys were like loading the back of the staff Humvees with cases of soda.
Oh my God.
And Time Magazine ran a little blurb about it, that you could track the progress of the 2nd Brigade of the 101st Airborne Division by following the trail of empty soda cans from El Kufa.
Shit, that's funny.
And I guess after it was all said and done, after we redeployed back to the States, the plant manager sent a letter to my brigade commander asking for compensation for all the soda guys that had appropriated, requisitioned.
That's really
We
funny.
don't steal, requisition.
Requisitioned. Yeah, and yeah, allegedly.
That's right, allegedly.
Allegedly. It's the word I always like to use. I allegedly did that. So yeah,
Right.
man. So then, so tell us what. So all right. So then you come back home. You deployed again to Iraq, right?
Yeah. So, and it's something I still haven't forgiven the Army for. But you remember in 2004, the Army basically went through that transformation where they changed the structure of the brigades, and they started those
Right.
RISTA battalions, cavalry guys. And, well, how they did it in the 101st was they basically eliminated an infantry battalion from each brigade, and my battalion, 3rd Battalion, was the ones who got the axe. So I was there when we cased our colors. There still are a lot of guys I was in 3rd Bat with, or to this day they're still angry about it, because it was we'd done some pretty good stuff over in Iraq. The battalion itself had a strong lineage. First Congressional Medal of Honor winner in the 101st was Lieutenant Colonel Robert Cole, was the 3rd of the 50 Deuce commander in World War II.
Right.
And I was faced at that point with an option. I was an E5. I was a sergeant, and I could basically kind of stick it out and see where division decided to send me, which, the Army, like, that's never a good thing.
No,
you're not going to go.
You're not going to go anywhere you want to go.
Or I could extend my enlistment for 10 months, and I could go over to 4th Brigade, which was the new brigade that they were standing up.
Right.
And so that's what I ended up doing. Which in and of itself was sort of a mixed blessing, because we go over to 4th Brigade, and it was, I was there when they might have had 200 guys in the entire brigade.
Yeah.
And basically what they did was they seeded the infantry battalions. Like, each company got like 5 or 6 combat experience NCOs, and then everybody else, they took like most of the Joes, most of the privates in my company had all gone to basic training and infantry school together. Like, they wholesale all came to Campbell to flesh out the new brigade. And then the other NCOs and officers were guys that had like done, none of them had deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan. They'd been in staff positions, drill sergeant, recruiter, all that. So it was, we were pretty light in terms of, guys who had a lot of experience. But the flip side of it was we had a little bit over a year. I think we had 13 months till we ended up deploying to train up. And for me, I ended up getting promoted to staff sergeant and being a squad leader. And like, that was kind of like a dream job, because I had a blank slate. I didn't have, guys that had been in other units and had other leaders and had a certain way to do things. Like, I kind of got to write my own book and train my guys the way I saw fit,
awesome,
without having to undo any bad habits. So we ended up, and once again, no plan survives contact with the enemy. We were originally slated to relieve a unit in Sadr City in Baghdad. That was the mission that we had trained for prior to deploying over to Kuwait. And we get over to Kuwait, and you have that like 2-week time period of acclimatization, and we once again Frago changed the mission, and we ended up going to Eastern Ramadi, and
Jesus.
we were not like, I mean, we spent the last year reading the Army Times, and when they had that section and it listed all the guys that were getting killed over in Iraq, and like 2/3 of the guys getting killed were coming out of Ramadi. We knew it was a nightmare, and it really was. I went in I was part of the Advon, so I was one of the first guys to get into Ramadi, and sort of do that whole left seat, right seat ride with the unit we were leaving, and the guys were haggard, a lot of 1,000-yard stairs.
Yeah, man.
The platoon that we relieved had lost, I believe it was 8 guys. They had 8 guys KIA, and they had almost 100% Purple Heart rate in the platoon. Like everybody had gotten hit at least.
Right.
I remember like my second night there, just kind of walking through the area on combat outposts where these guys were, and walking past one of the rooms where the squad lived, and like there was like 10 guys in there saying the rosary together, like, and I was just like, oh man, like, oh shit, this is serious.
Shit's getting real.
And I mean, we were getting a tour of our company sector when we got hit with our first IED, and we'd been there like 18 hours,
right?
And literally, and then when the rest of the platoon got there, the first mission the platoon went out on, we had 2 guys get hit, like right out the gate, and it was pretty much like that nonstop for 12 months. I mean, I think Time magazine called Ramadi the deadliest city on earth.
Yeah,
we were there.
The co-host, Mike Penny, my co-host that's not on with us today, he did both of his tours to Iraq in Ramadi with the 1st Marine Division. So he, man, he's well versed in it, and I've heard all his stories too. And he was there the first time, I think, right around the same time you were.
Yeah, and the big push, and like the first part of our deployment was really, we were, I think the term would be dynamic. We did a lot of raids, a lot of ambushes, and there was an element of the battalion, and because of the need to secure our lines of communication, basically like Route Michigan was our lifeline going back to Fallujah and Al Taqaddum Air Base, and where our logistical head was. We had one entire company in the battalion that all they did for the entire year was sit on OPs and secure that road. And we lost all of Bravo. I was in Alpha Company. We lost all of Bravo Company as a maneuver element, and then Delta Company was providing convoy security a good chunk of the time when they weren't, doing quick reaction force. And I really, honest to God, I felt for those guys, because anytime I had to get into a vehicle, I had a knot in my stomach.
Yeah.
Just because the IED threat was absolutely through the roof.
Yeah.
But so the battalion was basically left with a 2-company maneuver element. So we were, balls to the wall, going hard the first 6 months, and then they kind of higher up had a change of strategy, and basically the idea was we were going to cut the city in half to interrupt the enemy's lines of communication and supply, because if we did that, then they would have to take like a 30-mile detour through like the Tatooine desert. It looks like something out of Star Wars right there.
Exactly. It's like Jabba land.
Yeah, and so it was April of 2006, we launched Operation Iron Eagle, which was basically we rolled out and established a bunch of entry control points. So basically, like, we take over road intersections and set up shop there, and then we stayed there permanently. We fortified it, put bunkers on roofs, concertina wire, Texas barriers, that whole bit, and it did a good job of interrupting the enemy's flow of communication. The flip side of it was when these guys wanted to attack Americans. They knew exactly where we were, and we got into some pretty big fights, Alamo style, and some, some
Well,
scary moments.
I mean, literally everything from April to November was just like a fucking battle. Period.
Yeah, and I was there that entire time.
Right.
And the other thing too, which made Ramadi especially hazardous, was the battle space wasn't that big. I mean, you think of a city, and like, oh yeah, but like you and I both know full well that like, the effective range of 50 cal is thousands of meters, and like when you have an American position, here, and then 500 meters away, you have another American position, and these guys would get in between us and attack. So we called it taking effect, but like you were basically shooting at, inadvertently trying to shoot the enemy, but you were shooting in the direction of other Americans. And like I remember times where like we'd be taking effects from the government center or Opi Haria, where some of the Marines were. And like, I just had my guys lay down on the roof. I'm like, just stay small, man. There's nothing we can do about it. And that was, we were the only 101st Airborne asset in Al Anbar province at that time. Like I joke, we didn't just get detached from our battalion, we got detached from the Army. I mean, we were completely, all the other sectors that surrounded our battle space was all Marines. So,
it's 1-6 and I think it was 6th Marines and 8th Marines at that time.
We used to, because we monitor their radio traffic, just to keep up tabs. And I never found out who it was, but Kilo 16, the company commander of Kilo Company, was one of the funniest guys I've ever heard on the radio, chewing dudes out. I remember him talking to a Lance Corporal, and he goes, "Listen here, E4 about to be E1. Like, this is what you need to do." But I think part of my takeaway from that was, I don't have that same the normal level of inter-service rivalry with the Marine Corps as your average Army guy does. Because at the end of the day, we were all on the same team, and they helped us.
You guys were all chewing the same fucking dirt there, man.
For
real.
We used to Kazovac. A lot of times our aid station was closer than theirs was, because I think their main aid station was on Camp Ramadi, which was on the full blown on the western side of the city. So they just we'd help them out. They come, but. It was a very, very different experience from my first tour. Most definitely. You kind of saw. I mean, one of the ways I describe it to folks is, I say to them, remember in 2007 that we had to have the surge in Iraq because it had gotten so bad?
Right.
I'm like, I was there when it was getting so bad. When we didn't have enough guys to do what we needed to do, and the threat level was through the roof, and we got mortared and shot at every day, and you had to wear body armor and K-pot to like go to the latrine. You just we had guys getting hit standing in the line for chow.
Just asinine. So you come back. You basically, at that point, then you decide to get out, right?
Yeah, I'd had a few kind of close calls in Ramadi. Got my bell rung several times. IEDs, rocket propellant grenades, all that good stuff. And my oldest son was born when I was over there. So it really was kind of, I remember having a conversation with my hooch mate, who was one of the other squad leaders, the guy, Sergeant Shad Lorenz. And he was another guy who'd been in the invasion. This was his second time around. And, talking with him and just basically being like, at a point, you roll the dice enough times, you come up snake eyes.
Yeah.
And, as much as I loved being in the service, and I really considered staying in and making a career out of it, I felt that at that point, it was time to maybe, shift priorities, and being a father really was what brought that about. So, I got out in, '07, and I think, my story is probably fairly typical of a lot of our generation of veterans. I mean, ups and downs. I ended up working for Amtrak for about 5 years. And a lot of it for me too was sort of like put your head down, push everything, in the background, and just go with it. And I wasn't dealing with a lot of the after effects of my deployment. I ended up working nights, and one of the big reasons behind that was like I would get just ridiculously painful headaches during the day. Well, unbeknownst to me, come to find out later that like I have a moderate traumatic brain injury, and it was several years after I had gotten out before I started to really sort of like, okay, I need some help.
Yeah, I need to maybe seek some treatment for this.
And post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, you don't go through an experience like we had and not have some demons when you get out.
Right, for sure.
So I left the railroad in 2012. Kind of bounced around a little bit, working carpentry, and then in 2014, I sort of had a kind of a life-changing experience. I went skiing, and kind of, I think I probably talked to you a little bit about this before, but as a backstory to that, I grew up in Mount Washington Valley up in New Hampshire, and it's, you can't throw a rock without hitting the ski area.
No,
the elementary school I went to, during ski season, we were only in class 4 days a week, and one day we would go to the mountain, and like skiing was actually part of the curriculum. And ironically enough, most of the at that point, because we're talking 30 years ago, a lot of like the senior staff at the ski schools were all 10th Mountain guys.
Right.
All World War II 10th guys, but so I grew up skiing, and then when I was a teenager and we moved down to Rhode Island, I stopped skiing because
not a whole lot of ski areas in Rhode Island.
Absolutely,
unless it's water skiing.
Yeah, skiing down a landfill.
Right.
But a guy who lives locally to me, who I befriended, as a Vietnam vet, just one day in December of 2014, we were kind of, I was in between, I was out of work at the time, and he was like, hey, we should go skiing. And I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. So we went up to Mount Wachusett, Massachusetts, which is basically the closest halfway decent ski area to where I live. I'm about an hour and a half away. And, I hadn't been skiing in, God, it was like close to 20 years. And I had a lot of trepidation. I'm like, oh man, and as soon as it was like I never had stepped off the mountain. It really,
like riding a bike, man.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And so he and I were like, all right, yeah, let's start doing this. And we had gone up to, over the course of like 3 weeks, I think we'd gone up there like half a dozen times. And in a Hua moment, I super glued a 10th Mountain Division patch to the back of my ski helmet.
Yeah, Hua moment.
Yeah, it's my Hua moment. Yeah, 10th. And I was waiting in line to buy a lift ticket, and this woman who worked for the ski patrol saw the patch, and she comes up to me and she goes, who do you know in the 10th? And I looked at her and I went, me. I was in the 10th, and she's like, oh, like her uncle had served in the 10th in World War II. And so we had like this really like 30-second conversation, didn't think anything of it, get my lift ticket, go get a couple of runs in, and then I'm going to get on the lift to go back up to the top of the mountain, and here's this ski patroller again. And she hops on the chair with me, and on the way up, we had this, I had like a 5-minute ride to the summit.
Yeah.
have this conversation, kind of talking about, yeah, I'm a veteran, kind of, figuring out where I'm going with things. And we get to the summit, and she goes, I want to show you something. And she takes me over, and just past the top of the ski lift, right on the edge of the woods, is a small monument, and it's a dedication to the 10th Mountain Division. It was put up, I think back in the 60s, by a bunch of guys who were 10th vets that happened to live in central Massachusetts and ski to Wachusett.
That's pretty cool, bro.
And she said to me, she goes, you might want to go down to the ski school and talk to Rick, who's the director, the assistant director of the ski school. And she goes, I think he was in the 10th as well. So I was like, oh, no kidding, cool, I'll go do that. So I literally ski down the mountain, ski over to the ski school, and walk in, and introduce myself to this guy, Rick. And it turns out he was in the 10th, but not the 10th Mountain Division. He was actually in 10th Special Forces Group.
Gotcha, right. A little different.
And he was a retired Chief Warrant Officer. And of course, 10th Special Forces back in the 80s and early 90s, they had 2 battalions that were stationed in Fort Devens in Massachusetts.
Right.
So he had, right down the road. And he introduced me to Dave Domke, who is the director of the adaptive ski program there, for folks with disabilities. And long story short, I ended up getting a job working as an adaptive ski instructor. And it was fantastic. Working with, a very broad spectrum of people with disabilities. I did a lot of work with children on the autism spectrum. And then, people with cerebral palsy, and a variety, utilizing a variety of adaptive ski equipment, the sit ski, bi-ski, mono-ski. And, it kind of reawoken this part of myself that had sort of been dormant for a long time, and that I really wanted to, I had been very introverted for a long time after I got out of the Army, and it really made me kind of go, oh, well, I want to get out into the world and see what I can do to help other people. And I've always felt that's where, at least for me, I'm at my best is when I'm helping others. And so the ski season comes to a close, and this was in early April 2015. So, the snow melted, and I'm out of a job again. And
right.
So kind of weighing my options, and my oldest son was going on a field trip to Mystic Seaport, and they needed chaperones. So I had never been, believe it or not, I went to high school literally 10 minutes down the road. Since I got out of the Army, I'd lived in the same area here in southeastern Connecticut. I live in literally the same town that Mystic Seaport is located. I'd never never set foot in there before in my life.
Right.
So, I chaperoned this field trip, and I was kind of blown away by the experience. So much so that I literally applied for a job there that same day. And a week later, I get a call back to come in for an interview, and I got hired. And I originally got hired in the interpretation department, and that's basically the folks that work in the exhibits. When you tell people that you're an interpreter at Mystic Seaport, they think you speak a different language. In this instance, the language is basically history. You interpret the exhibit to the visitors. You kind of explain and teach and sort of share your knowledge. And I've always had a deep love of history, and being able to kind of share that with folks from all over the world was a real treat. I ended up working in 18 different exhibits in the time I was in the interpretation department, and a couple of the exhibits, primarily the shipsmith, which is a shipsmith is a blacksmith that makes items for the maritime trade, so boat parts and whalecraft, and I can get into that in a minute, but it's basically from the different tools they use in the whaling industry. I learned how to blacksmith there. I had the opportunity to learn from another veteran, a man named Bill Scheer. He's a retired Navy commander who was also I'm not sure if he's still currently the president, but he was in the past of the Connecticut Blacksmiths Guild. An absolute wizard with metal. But, so Mystic Seaport is not, it's not a traditional museum in the idea that, you go and there's a building and there are exhibits and you go and you look at things. It's very much an interactive and immersive experience.
Yeah, more like it's a living museum, basically.
Yeah. So the main grounds of the museum is what we call the Seafaring Village. So it's a recreated 19th century waterfront. Most of the buildings that are there are original buildings. They were brought to the museum. They've actually gone places, taken apart a building, trucked it into the museum, and put it back together. The actual shipsmith shop, the James Driggs shipsmith shop, was originally located in New Bedford, Massachusetts. It was built in 1885, and they purchased it and brought it to the seaport in 1942, somewhere thereabouts. The museum itself was founded in 1929 with the idea of preserving America's maritime heritage. There were some folks back then who saw that as we were entering the 20th century and moving away from sail and what we think of as traditional sailing, that was starting to get lost, and they wanted to figure out a way to preserve it and to preserve the vessels that exemplify that era of American history. And since that time, the watercraft, the boats, the watercraft collection that the museum has, I think currently there are over 500 vessels in the collection, and they range from traditional Inuit like skin kayaks to one of our vessels, the Charles W. Morgan, which is the only remaining wooden whaling ship in the world. And she's what you think of when you think of a ship. 3 masts, big yards and sails, and it's neat for our visitors to be able to kind of come on board, and they can go below decks and they can see where the men lived, and like I said, immersive and interactive experience. So I ended up being asked if I would be interested in possibly being on the Seaport's demonstration squad, which is a group within the interpretation department that literally demonstrates the skills that were used in order to be a sailor in the 19th century. Going aloft on the Morgan, climbing up into a rig, out onto the yards, setting sails, doing a 19th century life-saving drill, which was pretty neat. For the military audience, it's like riding down an antique zip line.
Yeah, right. It's awesome.
But launching a whale boat from a whale ship and rowing it, and showing folks how there's a bit of an emphasis on whaling and the whaling industry at Mystic Seaport. Number one, because we have the Charles W. Morgan and we have a whaling ship, but also that whaling was America's first real industry. It's sort of like it was the financial engine for the country following the Revolution. And it was one of those things that like Americans sort of, excelled at. And whale oil, prior to the discovery of petroleum products in the 1850s, was sort of the main lubricant and illuminant. You used it to lubricate the machines that were being built during the Industrial Revolution, and the Constitution of the United States was probably written by light produced from whale oil.
Absolutely right.
is sort of one of these apex industries. So it is an important story to tell to our visitors, and sort of to help kind of create a broader understanding of how America came to be. So yeah, so anyway, with my story, how I ended up down in the shipyard, you know, at the end of the fall, with onset of winter, the main museum ground sort of closed shop. And, you know, once again, I was sort of left in this position. I'm like, oh man, you know, I need to find some way to earn a couple of bucks. And unfortunately, it was a very poor winter. You know, there was not a lot of snow. And, you know, my original plan had been to, you know, go back up to the mountain and work there, but no snow, it's kind of hard to ski. And I was given the opportunity to go and work in the shipyard. And that's sort of the other part of the museum that's pretty neat, is they have a working shipyard, not only for our own vessels, because I mean, I'm sure you can imagine with, you know, 500 boats, from, you know, most of which are over 100 years old.
Right.
There's a lot of maintenance involved.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so I started working in the shipyard over the winter as basically a carpenter, working on the overhaul of Amistad,
Right.
yeah, which has
a slaving ship, right?
Yeah, it has you know, they made the movie about 20 years ago telling the story, and you know, this particular vessel is not the original Amistad.
Right.
She was built basically concurrently with the filming of Amistad. A good portion of that movie was actually filmed at Mystic Seaport. You know, Steven Spielberg was there. There's a lot of folks got some good stories about that. But yeah, so I was working on Amistad, and I was approached at probably a very opportune moment by one of the riggers. And on this particular day, I had just gotten done running new plumbing to the heads. So,
Right.
and I basically got that job because at 5'8", I'm small enough to fit into some of the pretty nasty fine spaces down in the belly of the ship to run new piping for the poop. And I had just come off the boat, and I was approached by Sarah Clement, was one of the other riggers, and she was basically like, you know, would you be interested in possibly being a rigger? And, you know, the lead rigger at the seaport, a man named Matthew Otto, you know, they'd been looking for another person. At that time, it was just the two of them, and they definitely needed the help. And, you know, he had, you know, knew I was prior military, and you know, his father was a Marine, so that carried some weight with him. It was sort of like, okay, well, this guy, I know he's got a good work ethic, and, you know, and the other thing too was that they knew, because of my experience on demonstration squad, that I could climb up into the rig, because that's not something that everybody can do.
Right.
You know, it's you know, you're 60, 70 feet up in the air, basically standing on a rope. Everything around you is moving. You know, it can get you know, get a little sketchy, but you know, and I jumped at the opportunity. I was like, oh, this is fantastic, and you know, applied for the job, got it, and I started working. You know, and the other nice thing about the job is full-time employment. Like, I have a real job. I'm not worrying about seasonal employment anymore. I'm having to bounce back and forth depending on the season. Yeah, so I've been working in the rig loft ever since. I mean, you know, I've learned basically how to do my job at the seaport, and it's one of the other unique things about the shipyard is that, you know, there are a few places to be at to actually be able to learn the skills of a traditional ship rigger. It's a lot of rope work, splicing. I know how to tie more fancy knots now than I ever to. And it also was the kind of job that, my coworkers are fantastic. It's one of the best group of people outside of the military I've ever worked with. And there's a really high degree of job satisfaction in it, and that like I feel like I'm contributing. I'm helping to preserve part of our national history. Currently, the big project that we have going on in the shipyard is the restoration of Mayflower 2, which is a replica of the Mayflower, the ship that brought the Pilgrims over. We're working in concert with Plymouth Plantation up in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and they selected us to do a very, very thorough restoration of the vessel. She's actually going to be in our shipyard till 2019, and the idea behind it is to get her back to the point where she's 100% seaworthy, so that in 2020 for the 400th
anniversary, right?
Yeah, they're going to be doing a lot of sailing programs with her. At least that's the plan, as I know it right now.
Yeah, we're my family's. I think we'll probably be there because my family is. One of my grandfathers is Miles Standish. So
okay.
Yeah, so we're related to him. I guess he's my great. It's like 6 greats or something. You know what I mean? 6 or 8 or 9 or whatever. I don't remember, but he's my grandfather. So yeah, man, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll be one of the guys building the new rig for it, installing the rig, and it's just it's like I look at it and sometimes I have to laugh because I'm like, this is nuts,
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. That's awesome.
And so to now that we've taken this long, circuitous route, to kind of cut to what we have going on at the seaport. I was contacted back January by Jean Gade, who's the head of human resources, and she wanted to organize a meeting and have the veterans who are on staff kind of come in and give their input on potentially doing an event involving the Wounded Warrior Project. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I was more than happy to give my 2 cents. So went into this meeting, and originally the idea behind it was we were going to do something in concert with the Stonington Harbor Yacht Club, because as it turns out, Stonington Harbor Yacht Club here in Stonington, Connecticut has been doing the Wounded Warrior Project event the last 2 years, where members of the yacht club basically offer their boats, and they take veterans and their families out for a day on the water in various types of watercraft. And it's ironic because I'm a Wounded Warrior Project alumni. I live in Stonington. I had no idea that this was going on.
Right. Right.
And in attendance in that first meeting was Steve White, who is the president of Mystic Seaport. And as we're discussing kind of options, and I opened my big Irish mouth, and I was of the opinion, I'm like, Mystic Seaport has a lot to offer, and I don't know if, doing a concurrent event with Stonington Harbor Yacht Club might be the best way for us to utilize our assets. Maybe if we did a standalone event, because there's so much to do at Mystic Seaport.
Right.
And really kind of throw the doors open for the warrior community to come there and really get to experience it. And that's basically what has led up to where we're at now. It'll actually be coming up for anyone who's listening who is a member of the Wounded Warrior Project. Keep your eyes, and lives in New England. Keep your eyes open, because May 30th, they put out their bulletin that lists all the upcoming events. We will be on there. We have an event coming up Saturday, June 17th at Mystic Seaport for the Wounded Warrior Project event, Wounded Warrior Project rather. And we've got a lot of really kind of neat stuff lined up. It's beyond the traditional visitor experience. I actually have a list right here of some of the stuff we're offering. We have the senior curator and historian at the Seaport is going to be giving kind of an overview of the history of Mystic Seaport as an institution, and then also Mystic Seaport, Mystic Connecticut as it kind of relates to the maritime trade. Because at one point there were actually 5 shipyards building ships in Mystic Connecticut. We're going to be doing guided tours of the shipyard, not just the actual exhibit space, but taking groups sort of behind the scenes, show them the rig loft. A lot of these places that aren't usually open to our regular visitors, and also doing talks about some of the projects that we have going on. I actually have Whit Perry, who is the Director of Maritime Preservation for Plymouth Plantation, and the head guy on the Mayflower restoration, is basically in charge of the Mayflower, has come to me and made himself available to give presentations on Mayflower to the warriors. Also, Matt Barnes, who is the lead shipwright, is offered to do demonstrations, and actually it's pretty neat to see how these timbers are shaped to be used on the vessels, and we use a combination of modern and traditional techniques down there. Right. So the timbers themselves are roughed out using one of the scariest band saws you've ever seen in your life. But then all the finish work is done strictly by hand using traditional tools. So hand planes, axes, and adzes, and it's that's really neat to see. And we're going to be doing hands-on demonstrations too for them. There's going to be an opportunity for those who are interested to sign up to actually do some blacksmithing, which I recommend to anybody.
Get some frustrations out, man.
That's it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Beating on some steel. It's and my kind of hope is there are some of these things that somebody might come to Mystic Seaport and try and go, hey, this is really cool, and then when they go home, maybe they it's put a bug in their bonnet, and they look around for opportunities to do that, because at the end of the day, it's about enriching a person's life and kind of getting guys off the couch.
Absolutely.
So they're also going to be doing private tours of waterfront tours. So getting out on boats, getting out on the river. We have a Navy launch called the Liberty. It's basically what the admiral might use to go between the battleships and the cruisers, but we use that for doing waterfront tours in the summertime. Our sailing center, so one of the other parts of Mystic Seaport, you can learn how to sail at the seaport. We have a gigantic fleet of Dyer dhows, which are these small sailboats, excellent for learning, and then also a couple of JY-15s, which are slightly larger sailboats, but both of them are, you can single-handedly sail either vessels, and there'll be staff on hand at the sailing center to, if guys are interested, or ladies and their families are interested in getting out and sailing, they can do that. There's also, for those that might not be interested in sailing, maybe want to try their hand at rowing. We have a collection of small boats that were built at Mystic Seaport that they can get out and row around. And then we're going to have some of the other parts of our schedule that are, that happen every day. We have a terrific planetarium on the grounds. They'll be doing planetarium shows. There are theatrical performances that will be taking place, and all of these are going to be open free of charge to members of the Wounded Warrior Project who come to attend the event. And then also there'll be lunch will be provided. We're kind of we want folks and their families to be able to come to Mystic Seaport and have the best experience possible. And the area is beautiful. I mean, you've been there.
It's one of my favorite places in the world, man. I love it.
Yeah, it's a quaint New England.
I just remember going a few times every summer, growing up in Connecticut, living there. And we'd go over, a lot of times we'd stop on our way to Point Judith, because we went out and we would stay for a week or two out on Block Island. And we would always stop at Mystic and usually go to the seaport one day, and then we'd go to the aquarium the next day, and then we'd go to Point Judith and catch the ferry,
Yeah, out to Block Island.
Out to Block Island, yeah, man. A lot of fun. So.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I'm really hoping we get a good turnout. I highly encourage anybody who's listening to this, if you're in the area, if you live in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, it's worth the hour or 2 hour drive to get to the seaport to come to it. And it's this Wounded Warrior Project event is also leading to better engagement between the seaport as an institution and the veteran community. I've been working with Ben, who is the director of the Sailing Center, in organizing this coming up this fall. We're actually going to have a veteran sailing group where it's going to be an 8-week program and open this. While Wounded Warrior Project is strictly post 9/11 veterans, the veteran sailing group will be open to veterans of any era, any service, Vietnam guys, Cold War guys, Marine, Army, Air Force.
And as soon as you have that, man, make sure you get me that info, and we'll put it out too.
And that'd
be pretty cool.
I'm looking forward to that because it's and no experience on the water necessary. The idea behind it is, guys are going to come learn to sail, both as individuals in the dire dows, get them together in groups of 2 or 3 in the JY-15s and work on team building. We're actually, the Seaport has made one of the whale boats available. So do some work rowing a whale boat, which is pretty... Honestly, at the end of the day, where else are you going to be able to go and actually row a whale boat that, guys back in the 19th century were taking 1,000 miles out in the Pacific and chasing after, think Moby Dick. I mean, or if anybody's seen In the Heart of the Sea,
that craziness.
And at the end of the day, I'm hoping this the events we're doing this year are only the beginning for Mystic Seaport and its engagement with the veteran community. Down the road, I'm hoping to create some service opportunities for guys who might be interested in volunteering at the Seaport, because that's one of the kind of the backbone that makes the Seaport be able to be what it is we have this core of volunteers that are they're wonderful, wonderful people, but they really, really help, from, helping to work in exhibits. We have, a group of people that come in to volunteer to work in the shipyard that, give their time to be able to help preserve and restore the vessels that we have down there. And I'm in the brainstorming point on that, but hopefully we can create some veteran specific volunteer opportunities down the road too.
Awesome stuff, bro. I love it all, man. So we will make sure that in the show notes that we put all the links to this stuff, and as soon as you know all the other info, just let us know, and we'll put it out too.
Yeah, I can give you, for anybody who's interested in maybe learning a little bit more about Mystic Seaport, we have a great website. It's www.mysticseaport, all one word, .org. And they,
and they talk about the sailing program. They talk about everything on there. It's a pretty awesome website. pretty awesome website. So sweet, bro. Exciting stuff, man.
Good stuff. Most definitely.
And all right. So we appreciate you coming on. And as always, man, we will definitely talk soon.
Definitely,
especially
brother.
when you guys know when you know some more info about stuff too, we can always get on and put it on. And yeah, man, just get guys out there in New England involved, period.
That's it, get vets together. That's when we're at our best.
That's
like
right.
when we were over in the
For
sandbox.
sure. For sure, man. All right. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode of Cigars and Sea Stories. Check us out at cigarsandsea.com. Check us out on any aggregator player of choice, iTunes player, FM player, Stitcher FM, any one of those. Come join us on Facebook at Cigars and Sea Stories, and also feel free to join our listener group at Cigars and Sea's listeners group. Brady, it's awesome to talk to you as always, and we really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me. I owe you one.
Awesome, man. Thanks to Spartan Media Group, who provided our awesome website, Heroes Media Group, or Spartan Media for the website. Heroes Media Group, that we're so proud to be a part of. Them and all the other shows. Feel free to go check them out at heroesmediagroup.com. Veteranslist.us, another great group of guys. And if you want a featured membership there, go ahead and check it out at veteranslist.us and use the coupon code Cigars and Sea for a 50%, that's 50% discount. Thanks for joining us again, and let's cue the music.
I will flag unfurled to every breeze, from dawn to setting sun.